Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really complex, honestly painful chapter from the history of pre-modern Kerala. We are going to explore the legacy of Travancore's caste-based taxation, specifically the highly controversial breast tax, and the truly inspiring fight for human dignity that followed. This is a story of intense oppression, incredible resistance, and the profound social transformations that ultimately shaped modern society. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a six-part roadmap today. We'll start with society in rigid tiers, then understand the breast tax, explore the legend of Ningeli, and break down the upper cloth revolt. Finally, we'll look at the reformers who changed society and why this history absolutely still matters today.
Section 1. Society in rigid tiers. The pre-modern caste hierarchy in Travancore. To really get this history, we have to first understand the deeply entrenched caste system of the 18th and 19th centuries. In that era, the divisions were just absolute. It was like a massive, unmovable wall between people. Dominant upper castes like the Nambudiri Brahmins, Nayars, and Royals held literally all the privilege. They controlled the land, the temples, and crucially, they had the absolute privilege of dress. Meanwhile, the lower castes, communities like the Nadars, Aishvas, Pulayas, and Paryas, faced severe daily restrictions. Denied education and temple entry, they were even routinely barred from just walking on public roads. But perhaps most visibly, they faced incredibly strict regulations on what they could wear. Clothing itself was weaponized as a permanent visual marker of caste identity. Section 2. Understanding the breast tax. What exactly was Malakaram? Let's transition to the specific economic and social burden that was placed on these marginalized groups.
So, the term we're looking at here is mulakaram. If we break this down, mula translates to breast and karam means tax or tribute. But, as our sources point out, this wasn't just some random financial tax to fill the state's coffers. Not at all. It was a deeply entrenched system of social control. This caste-based taxation was intrinsically tied to those dress restrictions we just talked about, specifically denying lower caste women the basic right to cover their upper bodies in the presence of upper castes. It was literally a daily, physical reminder of where society told them they belonged.
And the human cost here? Immense. The tragedy wasn't just financial, it was deeply psychological. The whole system used bodily humiliation to reinforce the idea of caste inferiority. Now, to be historically precise, our sources do note impartially that there isn't strong documented evidence of an official state policy ordering systematic molestation for failing to pay the tax. But it is just an undeniable reality that this unequal, humiliating system naturally created an environment where vulnerable women were entirely exposed to intimidation, abuse, and exploitation by the people holding all the power. A woman's humanity was diminished by the very clothes she was permitted or outright forbidden to wear. Section 3. The Legend of Nangeli, a powerful symbol of resistance. And this brilliantly illustrates how one person's defiance can spark a massive legacy. This story centers on a woman from Cherthala named Nanjali. So, step 1, when the tax collectors arrived, she outright refused to pay the mulakert kam. She just completely rejected the humiliation. Step 2 is a shocking, extreme act of protest. She reportedly cut off her own breasts and presented them on a plantain leaf to the collectors. Step 3, tragically, she died shortly after from severe blood loss. According to the local folklore, her husband was so completely overcome with grief that he threw himself onto her funeral pyre, an act that's sometimes referred to in these oral histories as male sati. And step 4, today, her incredible sacrifice is memorialized at Mulichiparam Bu.
Now, whenever we look at history, we also have to look at the historiography. Historians actually debate whether Nangeli was a fully documented, literal historical individual, or if her story is more of a powerful piece of folklore that represents the collective, traumatic oral memory of generations of oppressed women. But honestly, whether literal or symbolic, the core truth remains exactly the same. Nangeli stands as this potent, undeniable symbol of resistance against severe injustice.
Section 4. The Upper Cloth Revolt. When the oppressed refused to remain silent. Let's see how this individual spirit of resistance actually built into a widespread movement. The Chanar Lahala, or the Upper Cloth Revolt, was driven by a few key forces. First off, it was sparked by Nadar, or Shanar women, bravely demanding the right to wear upper garments with dignity. But here's a really fascinating root cause highlighted in our sources. The involvement of foreign Christian missionaries, specifically the London Missionary Society. While foreign missionaries are often heavily criticized in modern social political debates, history shows that in this specific context, they were actually a vital root cause in eradicating these oppressive, superstitious practices. By standing firmly behind these women and the Indian reformers, establishing schools, and pushing literacy, they helped enlighten and guide the community. They fully supported the women wearing kupayam, those loose jackets that became ultimate symbols of dignity. Add in the administrative pressure from British authorities like Colonel John Munro, and you suddenly had a very powerful coalition pushing back against the old order.
But this wasn't a quick fix. This intense struggle played out over decades. Pre-1859, the push for dignity was met with severe, brutal violence. Upper caste or Savarna mobs violently attacked lower caste women who even dared to wear the kupiyam. But heading into the mid-revolt phase, the sustained protests by Nadar women, which were heavily bolstered by the steadfast support of those Christian missionaries, just refused to break. And finally, in 1859, a massive milestone was reached. A royal proclamation by the Travancore Kingdom officially granted lower caste women limited rights to wear upper garments. Now, it wasn't perfect equality for sure, but it was a massive, structural fracture in the foundation of caste oppression.
Section 5. Reformers who changed society. Challenging the mindset of inequality. Because while the revolt laid the groundwork, changing that deeply ingrained mindset of inequality required monumental Indian reformers. Two of the absolute giants in this shift were Sri Narayana Guru and Ayan Kali. Sri Narayana Guru focused heavily on spiritual reform and equality. Building right on top of the early educational foundations supported by those missionaries, he systematically challenged the very philosophy of caste superiority. And then we have Ayan Kali, who focused intensely on Dalit rights and education. His impact was incredibly practical and courageous. He physically fought for basic, everyday rights like road access and labor dignity for oppressed communities. They weren't just fighting a tax. They hit the nail on the head by fighting the superstitious mindset that allowed the tax to exist in the first place.
I just have to pause on this incredible quote from Sri Narayana Guru. One caste, one religion, one God for humanity. That might sound like a simple, catchy slogan to us today, but back then, it was a radical, utterly earth-shattering philosophy in a society that had spent centuries categorizing human worth purely based on the family a person was born into. It was a massive call to recognize our shared humanity above all else.
Section 6. Why this history matters. Lessons for the modern world. So the crucial point is, how does this actually connect to us today?
Seriously? Why revisit such painful history now? The breast tax is abolished, the laws have changed. But the reason we must examine this in our explainer today is that while the explicit laws are gone, the underlying roots of social exclusion, gender inequality, and caste discrimination, they still echo in our modern world, just often in much subtler forms. Social evil kinda just shapeshifts. It doesn't automatically disappear. Humiliation still occurs today, anytime someone is judged by their caste or background, or when anyone is denied their basic dignity. Civilizations aren't just judged by their GDP or their tech. They are ultimately judged by how they treat their most vulnerable people. History has to be an active teacher for us, not just some dusty museum exhibit. Ultimately, true progress absolutely requires treating every single person, regardless of their background, their caste, or their gender, with equal dignity and respect. It's the only real way forward. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. In our rapidly advancing hyper-modern world, how are we going to ensure the deep wounds of history actually continue to heal, rather than just reopening in brand new ways? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.